I'm excited to introduce one of our very successful members, Rodger Wilson. So give him a hand here.
All right.
Thank you so much for coming.
No problem.
I appreciate you. And why don't you tell us a little bit about you, your family, why you joined Lifestyles?
Okay. So my name is Rodger Wilson. I've been a member for 2 years. Prior to that, me and my wife, we owned 2 software companies, one that did mobile applications and one that did facial recognition. So if you know Credit Human, that was a customer, as well as like DirecTV and Samsung. So those are some of our customers, and at the time.
So you're kind of a nerd too. A little different than David. He's more Dungeons and Dragons. You're more IT.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So.
Well, anyway, great. And so, why did you join Lifestyles? What was the?
I was working nonstop. I would get up at 8 a.m. and I would sometimes go to bed at 2 a.m. because I had 2 companies to run. And my son would come and he would pull on my pant legs and say, "Can we go play?" And I'd be like, "No, I'm sorry, we can't go play.
Wow.
I really got to work." And at that time, I remember one morning I woke up and I said, "You know what? I make $3,000 a month from my 2 rentals, and I don't have to get out of bed for that $3,000."
Right.
And so me and my wife did a lot of numerical analysis, and we decided we needed to do real estate full time, and we needed to embrace debt.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you did have a little bit of a real estate background, but you joined when 2 years ago in Lifestyles, and you've been rocking and rolling since then, right?
Yeah.
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 So that's what's exciting. In fact, we're going to go over one today, which is Ridge Moon. So tell us a little bit about this property.
In fact, the reason I brought up this property is how many of you guys would ever like to have a free house, right? Well, this was a house that in the end I got for free, but this house didn't start off as a blessing. This house actually kind of started off as a curse.
Well, wait a second. You bought this in May of 2020. Isn't that during COVID?
Wasn't everyone dying?
So can you find good deals during COVID? Well, everybody's dying and afraid. We were out there making 100% plus return. Who likes that? Now, we couldn't scream that on the radio because we'd sound like evil capitalists, but who's with me? We made a shit ton of money during COVID. Oh, sorry. That's
True story.
Yeah.
Well, how'd you end up getting it free? That sounds too good to be true there.
So this particular house, I bought this house from a wholesaler, and it was a blind auction. So everybody wrote down on a piece of paper what they'd be willing to pay for it, and me and my wife won. What we didn't realize is this particular house, there was a 70-year-old woman living in it. She had a 40-year-old daughter who was dying of cancer and was bedridden, and a 12-year-old granddaughter, and she hid from everybody successfully that the water line underneath the house, the hot water line, had burst.
Wow.
And so this was something that we learned after we got in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we got the house, we got in there, and my wife was freaking out. But Christina, wave your hands, everybody can see you.
She's the brains, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Actually, she's the one that did
the beauty.
The analysis that we needed to move equity to Texas. So we moved to San Antonio, specifically for the real estate here.
Where were you from originally?
Well, I grew up in Boulder, Colorado, and at the time we moved, we were in Boulder, Colorado. However, previous to that, we lived in Beijing, China.
Oh, okay, cool. So you went from 420 all day to Chinese food over here. Cool.
That's right.
Texas barbecue.
Right. Well, you know, 420 and Chinese food go well together.
It does? That's true.
So, at any rate, so this particular house, we got in and I decided, she was freaking out. I said, we got to think this one through. And so I got one of those Home Depot buckets, set it in the middle of the room. And in fact, it took me 3 days to figure out what happened with the hot water. I went, after we got in there, turned on the kitchen faucet, no hot water at all. I went to the water closet, and I saw that the ball valve was closed. I opened it, went back to the kitchen. I had hot water. I thought, oh, that was easy. Then I turned off the kitchen faucet, and I could still hear water running. I was like, well, I left a faucet on somewhere else. Went all the way around the house. Every one of them, they're off. Yeah, and so I spent 3 days. I even left it on overnight. Didn't sleep all night. Got there the next day to look for water. No water. And 15 years earlier, me and my father had owned a car wash in Colorado, and like clockwork, the winds would come out of Wyoming and come down through Colorado.
God's country. Yes.
Yeah, and it would freeze those pipes and they'd burst. It seemed like every Friday at 2 a.m. I was out there replumbing that car wash. And so I thought, well, I know how to plumb, and so, in fact, let's go back a couple slides. Go to the one with the kitchen. You could see that wall underneath the sink, that's a wet wall. So I went out to my truck and grabbed a utility knife. I opened it up, and I went to where the wash machine, opened it up, went the bathrooms and hot water heater all connected with a common wall. Took my knife, opened it up, and I turned on the hot water to feel which ones are hot. And then I shut off the water for the whole house. I cut all the pipes that were hot going to the foundation, rerouted them up to the ceiling. And actually a funny story, and this is actually really what helped save me money, is I was kind of desperate, right? We had 3 other houses in construction, and I didn't have the funds for replumbing the whole house. So I started walking down the street looking for a skinny teenager. And so I found this like 13-year-old girl, and I'm like, where's your parents? And so she took me to her dad, and I said, can I give your...
This isn't going to turn America's Most Wanted, right?
That's right. Okay. I said, can I pay your daughter $50 for her to carry this hose through the attic? And he's like, I'll do that for $50. I'm like, dude, you're the same size I am. So he did it. He drug that hose through the attic and got to the other side. And so then I had all my pipes connected. Well, this guy's nephew, he's like 18. He was there. He's like, man, this place really needs painted. He's like, I'll paint it for you. I'm like, well, first step in negotiation is ask them the price first, right? I said, well, how much? He said, $600. I said, $600? I said, now you do understand, I need the baseboards painted. I need the ceiling painted, the walls painted. Don't paint the outlets. Don't paint the switches. Don't paint the floors.
By the way, everything you're hearing right now is nothing that I teach.
That's right.
You never lift up a hammer. You always lose money. We pay people, but Rodger's sharing his experience.
And actually, this is kind of a learning experience. There's actually several things I'd go through I would change. In fact, one of them was I bought this house in cash, and actually I would have used hard money if I was to do it again.
Oh, yeah.
But
then you could have afforded all the contractors, and you'd have the rehab budget.
That's right. That's right. I was tight on money because I was paying for it in cash. So...
He was tight on money because he spent all that money in cash.
That's right.
We'll figure that out later. It's okay.
So, at any rate, so this guy, he painted the inside of the house for $600. When he got done, he did a good job. He said, you know, the outside actually has less square foot that needs paint than the inside. What do you say you do the outside for $600 in 1 week? And he said, okay. So he painted the exterior for $600.
Cheap,
yeah, I got a good deal.
I would hire him if he needs a job.
Yeah. So, in this right here, it was one of the wet walls that I pulled out, was for the bathroom. You see, it was kind of nasty before. I actually had to reach down in there, and I was like, well, you know, going down the street looking for skinny kids worked before. So I went to my sister, who had a 10-year-old son, and said, can I borrow your son for the day? And so I had him reach down there and grab the pipe, and me and my wife, we retiled it. So let's see, all the things we did. So we painted the interior, the exterior. We put in the countertops. We did the countertops for $200. I went to Facebook Marketplace and bought stainless steel appliances for $1,000. We did the whole house for $5,000.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So
let's see what that did to your numbers.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you look here, I bought the house for $100,000. Actually, it's $100,314.15. And so for those of you math people out there know that I'm a dork. It's pi.
Yeah, to the dollar. I like that.
So we bought it for $100,000. I put $5,000 into fixing it up, and there's actually a typo here. The closing costs, I actually went and looked it back up. Closing costs for the mortgage were $8,500.
Oh,
Okay.
You told me that, and I didn't update it.
That's
I
okay.
apologize.
That's okay. So you think about it, I had started with $105,000 in my pocket. I spent $100,000 on the house. I spent $5,000 on fixing it up. I then went to the bank afterwards and said, man, I really regret I don't have a mortgage on this.
Yep.
Can I get a mortgage? And they said, well, what'd you pay for the house? I said, that's not fair. I fixed it up.
Yep.
And they said, okay, we'll send out an appraiser. And it appraised for $150,000. They said, all right, we'll give you a loan for $112,000.
Right.
So I started out with 105, ended up with 112. Now, for any of you that have ever done a cash-out refi for a conventional mortgage, you have to wait 6 months.
Right.
Yep.
And that's another reason I would have used hard money. I could have gotten around that.
You know, I teach that in my seminar. If you would have just paid attention.
But in that 6 months, I'm collecting. This place, we finished construction on this in 3 weeks.
Right.
It rented.
Start making money right away.
Yeah, it rented in one day.
So look at this. If we just go by these numbers here, I know it was a little less than this, but you have about $7,000 out of pocket.
Yeah.
And you have 32,000 equity.
Yeah.
That's a 480% return. Who'd be okay with that? Now, if you would have done it the right way, you wouldn't have been 6,000 out of pocket. You would have been about 15 out of pocket because you would have had to pay more for real contractors instead of 12-year-old Chinese children or whatever you had, right?
Yeah.
But even if we would have done it that way, guys, look at it. Let's say it would have been 15 out of pocket to make 32,000. Who'd be okay with that as well? I'm just saying either way, this deal would have worked.
Yeah, and actually, one of the things I realized afterwards is, so this was 6 months before I put my money back in my pocket.
Right.
And the next house, I actually used hard money with a construction loan.
Well, yeah.
And we're talking like 3 weeks, 4 weeks before the money's back in my pocket, because the construction loan starts feeding money back in.
And that's actually what I teach, just so you know. But sometimes we're a little bit stubborn trying to be cheap. And it's okay. I understand that. People have to go through that.
Yeah, that's right.
And look, he's an overachiever with the cash flow. What did David Fisher say? 200 to 600.
Yeah, he makes
We're almost
$700 a
700.
month. That's awesome.
That's amazing.
And the couple that's in there, that they rented it day one, raised the rent $100 on them this last year.
That's how you thank them.
Yeah, that's right.
Every year you thank your residents who raise the rent. Who's with me on that one? We're here to make money, guys.
And they love it.
They do.
I'll bet you if I offered to sell it to them, they'd buy it.
Yep.
So, in fact, she's a loan officer.
Oh, there you go.
So.
There you go.
And this
So
is
you bought a couple houses.
Not the only one.
Yeah. That year. So, in fact, if you look at this top one, you remember?
So, guys, this is what he did in 2 years. Is that pretty good? Give him a hand. Not bad, right?
Now, you see this one where it says 5 Forks? At the end of 5 Forks, actually, that's the one I used hard money on. At the end of that 5 Forks, I was exhausted. I mean, I was tired. And so I told my wife, I said, we need to go on a year-long vacation.
Yeah.
And so I've been working this hard my entire life. Let's go on a year-long vacation. So we sold everything but real estate, put all the real estate up for rent, and we started traveling. And then 3 months into it, we had a problem. I said, Christina, we got too much money in the bank, and we got to solve this. And so I called up my realtor and said, there's an apartment for sale in Corpus Christi, and I want to buy that apartment. And my realtor said, I hear you. I've seen that one. It doesn't look bad, but there's a place called Triple Pines, and you got to see Triple Pines. This thing's a money-making machine. And so after our year-long vacation at 4 or 5 months, we actually came back to San Antonio, and we bought Triple Pines, and it was such a beautiful place. In fact, the numbers here for Triple Pines, if I live on the property, and that $3,000 is what I get paid to live on my property.
That's
pretty
you're
sweet.
Making more than that.
Yeah.
So,
you have
so
4
basically, in
units
2 years, you were able to achieve $100,000 worth of tax-free income. Who'd like to do that? Now, what's the technical term for that? Pee in your pants excited. Who agrees? I mean, give him a hand. That's amazing, right? Yeah. Not bad.
And I think you told me you've had a few people say, "Hey, I'd like to get back in the industry," right? With software companies and what have you.
Yeah.
And this is making you think twice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm like, when you go get a job, let's say you're getting paid, let's just use $120,000. $120,000, what do you bring home a month? It's not $10,000, it's $5,000, right? But here, let's just pretend I was making $120,000. You bring home $10,000 a month.
Yeah. And you got to realize, and I know I can't explain it tonight, but this is all tax-free income because of depreciation, all that, which I'll cover in my seminar.
If you made 120, you'd take a ton off for just tax alone. So,
yeah. In fact, this last property, Triple Pines, we just did a cost segregation on that property, and my tax deduction for this year is $200,000 off my income.
God bless the IRS.
So
I know you don't understand that when you're new, but you will this weekend.
And on top of that, you got just a huge nest egg there, $470,000, which is growing year over year. I mean, in the San Antonio area, it's like 5 to 10%.
And I don't know if it's. I believe this is true. We'll have to see over the next few years. But I believe if I spent every cent I made, my net worth will still grow $250,000 a year.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Is that powerful? And the reason we like real estate over every other asset class, it makes money 5 ways. The equity capture, like he just showed, school will probably work my great.
Oh, this is us heading out on our vacation. Sorry about
that.
that.
I thought it was one of YouTube videos. That's what she thought.
This is where you dance.
Okay.
We thought we would incorporate a
week we're
video
heading
this
to
time.
Louisiana. When we lived
Joey,
in
you
Beijing,
didn't tell me there's a video.
one of my
Well, my
wife's
apologies.
favorite places
There's no
to
child
eat
labor
was
stuff in there.
Surprise. Maybe a little.
Basically, it was Cajun food.
That kid
so this
served the
week,
food
we're
that
heading
night.
to Louisiana and having crawfish, and we're
Oh,
gonna
so
go
this is showing you
boating
go on
to look
vacation
at
because you don't have a job anymore.
That's
Living the
the
lifestyle.
first time in my life I'm not working 12 hours a day.
And you bought a drone too.
Yeah. I really enjoyed spending time with my son.
Yeah, now you have the
I
time
can
to spend with him.
see. And he's right over there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so here's where I want to go in the future. When we came back, I decided, I could, in fact, we even talked a little bit online, I could
Yep.
sit and live off that $100,000 for the rest of my life, but actually I believed it was irresponsible. And so I decided I wanted to become a lead for the multifamily because my goal is I want to bring in $1 million a year passively.
Who likes that idea? See, he's growing. He did the single family thing. Next, he wants to grow, and now he wants to do the multifamily thing. So who thinks he's going to do it?
Now we
You
got
have another
another
video?
vote. Sorry.
Really?
Got to throw it in. It's short.
You even showed Mater there. A little bit of redneck.
So we're on the bayou. This guy in the picture we want to buy.
Piggly Wiggly.
And I was like, I don't know if he's going to bury us in the bayou or something like that. My son's never been on a boat.
I thought they were going to be muted, BDS. My apologies.
Okay. Sorry about that. Too much video.
Awesome.
Well, good.
Well, Roger,
Yep.
would you mind taking some questions? But before we get that, I want to ask you a question for the
Yeah.
new people in the room. Remember 2 years ago when you first came to the seminar, you kind of learned this stuff or whatever. What advice would you give the new people who've never done this before, never been to seminar? What advice would you give them?
In fact, I've thought about this a lot of times in my life. I think one of the mistakes I made, I wish I had never put money in my 401k. I wish at a very young age I had just think simple. Imagine you're just some simple guy and you just go out and you buy a rental every year, something like that. I actually took all the equity out of my 401k and everything, and I stuck it into this because I was like, if I can retire now, then why does it need to sit in there till I'm 65 and then retire?
Yep.
It doesn't make any sense. I can do this
Enjoy
today.
it now, because I mean, like you said,
I mean-
how many people out there could take a month off or 2 months off? You took a couple months off already,
Yeah, and the original plan was 1 or 2 years.
and you didn't even vote for Bernie Sanders. You didn't do that.
So yeah.
Awesome. Well, you want to take some questions, Roger?
Yeah, I'd love to.
So let's take people in the room first, and if not, we'll get some online maybe.
We'll go online.
Anybody in the room have any questions? Right here. Oh, wait, she's running around.
Oh.
I don't know where.
Here, I'll get the one up front first.
On your house where you ran the plumbing overhead, you did insulate it, right?
No, it's interesting. Here in San Antonio, I'm from Colorado, and the stuff that I see here in San Antonio, we were like, oh, you wouldn't want to do that. And so, no, I didn't. And actually, it was before the freeze. And we didn't have any
And
problems.
did you switch over to PEX?
It was all PEX.
Yeah, so PEX
Yeah,
pretty
PEX
much
won't.
handles that.
And in fact, one of my
Withstands it.
houses, it's actually one of my nicer houses. That was in every house I have a mistake that I made. Yeah, and this one was too nice of a house, but it had the water coming up in PEX on the outside. And so we're in Florida while you guys are freezing here, and I'm sitting on the beach, and I'm thinking, I know I'm going to get calls about my we've got 16 doors. I'm like, I'm going to get a call. I didn't get one call. I was shocked.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is it mostly PEX?
Well, let me think about that. It's probably a mix, half and half. Yeah.
The ones he didn't fix, they're going to be galvanized. I mean, it is what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You have a question? Oh, way back there. Go ahead. This is the Cuban question.
This
Go
is
ahead.
Cuban.
Can we get a translator?
I know you're Cuban. You're
Because
next to
it makes a
Karen.
difference.
You're loud.
On that same home.
Yeah.
So you listed that you had a $5,000 rehab.
Yeah.
Is that including the cost to repair that water? That
Yes,
first water
that
pipe?
was, and
And that's not a realistic number.
No,
He
it's not.
did it himself. That's why I said, hey, let's be real. Let's add another 10K to it. Would you still do the deal?
And-
Does that make sense? That's because you were talking to Karen.
And I do think that's a fair number. If you added 10K, it probably would have been real. But since I had done the car wash thing, I was like, I'm not licensed as a plumber, so hopefully there's no inspectors in here. But
There's only hundreds of people watching online. It was an emergency repair. It was a 1-foot section. You're allowed to
That's right.
during COVID.
Well, good. Any more questions?
I did have a couple online.
Oh,
We
okay.
got a few? Okay. We'll get
Run,
those
run,
real
run.
quick.
There we go.
Okay.
I just want to look at those numbers again. That's beautiful.
Just
2
you
years,
gotta watch, 'cause if
110,000.
you're clicking
Yeah.
and she can't click and it screws her up.
Oh, my bad.
Okay.
Sorry.
How many do
Reading
we
through
have
all the
online?
messages as I walked away. Okay, so Lisa asked, how do y'all feel about inflation and rentals?
The question was, how do you all think about inflation rentals? I'll listen to you guys first.
Yeah, okay, I would love to. So I told you we spent maybe 6 months to a year doing mathematical models about this whole thing. And what I came to the conclusion of is
That's the engineer type right there.
That's right.
Nerd spreadsheets.
by having leverage, it makes a huge improvement for inflation. So because I try and keep about a 30% profit margin with 80% leverage, and it means that I get 3x whatever inflation is. So if we have 3% inflation, I get a 10% raise. And if we have 10% inflation, I get 30% raise every year.
It's pretty amazing. And also debt debasement. So inflation means that you have a fixed mortgage payment that you're making every month. And if the value of the dollar goes down 6-7%, you're paying back that mortgage in cheaper dollars. That's another benefit as well.
And right now, thank you, Janet, yelling, what happens? We have the lowest interest rates right now. We're getting
Yeah.
to the 3% range. Really, guys, I don't know if you realize this, we should be paying 6 to 7%.
And
By us paying 3%, it's like free money right now.
And I would never do a 15-year mortgage.
Well, I would kill you if you
Yeah.
did, because I don't
Yeah,
teach
yeah.
that.
I mean,
It's 30-year only.
If
If they would give us a 100-year mortgage, we would take that, right, Rodger?
Absolutely. In fact, one of mine is interest only.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if we could just keep this interest only thing
Yeah.
going forever. In fact, that house that's interest only, it's now half paid off.
Yeah.
And so that's a problem.
That means it's time to refi again.
Yeah.
Pull more
Yeah.
money out.
And your mortgage.
I mean, listen to all these problems this guy has.
Yeah. Inflation's good. It's good.
Yeah.
It helps us
See,
right
well,
now.
all the things that you guys are afraid of is because you're not educated enough. You understand? We make money 5 ways. No other asset class can do that. So even if one sector would fail, we have the other 4 to make up for it. That's why we love real estate. And I'll go
Yeah.
into detail on that this weekend. I can get really deep into Hayek versus Keynesian economics. Who'd like to hear a dissertation on that?
That's
But
nerdy.
we don't want to go that deep. You would hear that. You and your Bilderberg and CFR and Trilateral Commission.
You know me too well.
You're a whack job, but that's okay.
Creature from Jekyll Island.
There you
Gotta
go.
Read that book.
Anybody know what I'm talking about?
It-
They actually know
look.
the creature check. Whoa,
We
this
got
is
a woke
this is a
audience.
woke crowd. Here we go. Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
I have one
Yeah.
more question
Yeah.
online,
Okay.
too. Sorry.
Oops.
Oh, sorry. Got the motorboat running. Apologies. Yeah.
Okay, so Tyler asked, how much money did you start with, though? At the
Okay.
very
Be
beginning.
real with them.
No,
If you pull mine out of 401k, I'm sure you lost some. If you don't mind sharing that, Rodger.
I'll share
This is
everything.
powerful. This is being real.
So we were in Colorado at the time, and my wife did a return on equity analysis. And I don't know if she knew that's exactly what she was doing. I'm of the mindset, buy and never sell. And she's like, Rodger, come here. Look at the math. If we sell, we're going to make more money. And so she talked me into it. We sold, and we brought, I think, $500,000 into the San Antonio market.
Okay.
And so we did a 1031 exchange into San Antonio, and then, I had to spend a certain amount of money, and so my back door out of that 1031 was I bought that house in cash, and then I immediately turned around and refinanced it, and I put
See, what you don't understand how genius this is. When you 1031, you roll from one piece of real estate to another. Instead of paying that capital gains tax, you don't have to pay it. But if he does a loan on it then, that's not a sale. You pull that money out tax-free. Who likes that idea? What I'm going to teach you this weekend is called deferred. You die, never pay taxes your entire life. Who wants to never pay taxes again? Welcome to the Republican Party.
That's awesome. Well,
Awesome.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was really great and
Yeah.
inspirational. Thank you so much for sharing, guys.